completely disconnected from normal reality.
There it is. Stunning.
Locations where strange structures appear, time feels off, and unexplained discoveries keep confusing experts.
So these are light pillars. Some of the best I've seen in years.
These mysterious places found on Earth continue to leave people searching for answers even today. Let's begin.
I don't believe my eyes.
A group of friends on a routine desert road trip near Nevada weren't looking for anything unusual. Then someone glanced out the window. Dark, jagged structures hung suspended above the desert floor, completely motionless, completely silent, shaped in ways that matched nothing in any known category of human aviation. Not aircraft. Not drones. Nothing with a name or a manufacturer. They simply floated there, unbothered by explanation. Area 51 sits close enough that its decades of rumors suddenly felt less like conspiracy and more like understatement. Whatever was hovering beside it that afternoon belonged to no inventory anyone has publicly acknowledged. Blue Pulse. Jordan's open desert offered one man something the ground had no ordinary reason to produce. A hole, unremarkable from a distance, was pushing blue light upward from deep below, not steady or fixed, but shifting continuously, changing shape on its own in patterns that suggested movement rather than chemistry. Geological phenomena glow occasionally. They don't reorganize themselves. The light below kept adjusting, kept forming new configurations, behaving less like trapped gas or mineral reflection and more like something generating it deliberately from a position well beneath the surface. The part that makes it genuinely difficult to dismiss is how consistently it moved only after the man above it stopped moving too. Sahara Portal. This man crossing the Sahara found what appeared to be an unremarkable hole in the desert floor and looked down. What waited at the bottom had no business being there. Instead of soil and shadow, he saw open space, a deep purple galaxy, rocks drifting freely, and the visible curve of Earth glowing in the far distance, framed like a window punched through reality itself. No geological process produces that. No rational framework absorbs it cleanly. What the desert floor apparently contains, sitting beneath ordinary sand with no warning, is a view from somewhere so far out in the universe that the word hole no longer feels adequate. Hovering rock. Nevada's desert holds a secret that refuses to behave. A massive rock floats above the ground, untouched by anything beneath it, contradicting every physical principle most people have accepted without question. Strange enough on its own, yet the sand below proved far more unsettling. Beneath the rock, circular patterns covered the ground in formations too precise to dismiss as wind. The explorer reached in and wiped them clean. Within moments, they returned. Not scattered or faint, fully redrawn, as though guided by something underneath, with its own persistent intention. Nobody studying this site has produced an explanation that actually holds. Climbing water. India's western cliffs host something geography textbooks haven't properly prepared anyone for. At Nadagat, a waterfall occasionally abandons its downward path entirely. When monsoon winds tear through the mountain corridor with full seasonal force, the falling water gets caught, reversed, and pushed skyward, rising like a geyser running backwards. From a distance, it resembles water climbing deliberately toward the clouds it once fell from. Scientists attribute this to powerful updrafts channeling through the pass. That explanation is technically accurate, but accuracy does nothing for the person standing there, drenched, watching gravity apparently negotiate terms with the mountain rather than simply enforce them. Himalayan Pyramid. A hiker working through high Himalayan terrain found something the mountain had apparently kept buried for a considerable length of time. Half submerged in snow, its dark surface contrasting sharply against the white surroundings, sat a perfectly shaped pyramid structure, angular, deliberate, and utterly without explanation. Only the upper tip broke the snow line. The rest of whatever this object truly is remains sealed beneath the ice. Its full scale completely unknown. The mountain didn't reveal it. The elements simply shifted enough to expose the corner of something far larger, still waiting underneath, patient and silent, in no apparent hurry to be fully understood. Sphinx Interior. There is a doorway at the base of Egypt's Great Sphinx that has never received a satisfying public explanation. A recent visitor recorded what was coming from inside that opening, a perfectly straight red laser beam cutting through the interior darkness, accompanied by sounds with no identifiable origin. The Sphinx was constructed thousands of years ago by a civilization that historians formally credit with no access to either of those things. Whatever produced them did so without announcement and without explanation. That combination, ancient structure, unexplained technology, active output positions, this discovery somewhere most mainstream historians have shown no willingness to go. Al-Nasla Rock. Saudi Arabia's desert holds a rock that has unsettled every geologist who has studied it seriously. Al-Nasla stands divided, sliced cleanly down the center with a precision so exact. The two halves appear separated by intention rather than erosion. What makes it stranger is the base, a narrow pedestal, somehow supporting the entire structure in perfect equilibrium across centuries. Natural processes occasionally split stone. They rarely do it this straight, this clean, or this balanced. Scientists classify it as a geological puzzle without committing further. Others point to the precision as evidence of ancient capability knowledge applied to stone that our current framework for early civilizations has no comfortable place for. Desert Announcement.
Tell me some of the wildest stuff, and they were telling me the truth.
Nevada drivers began stopping along the highway after noticing something in the open desert that hadn't been there before. A towering dark structure now occupied the empty land, completely covered in carved human bodies, skulls, and contorted figures. A glowing red eye fixed at its center, long branch-like arms extending outward in every direction. Nobody nearby could account for its arrival, its builder, or how anything this detailed appeared without anyone witnessing the construction. The discomfort it produced in everyone who approached wasn't simply aesthetic. The figures, the scale, the placement in the empty desert, nothing about it suggested it was built to be appreciated. It felt built to deliver a message about something not yet arrived.
If you look, there's liquid dripping off the end, so that's part of the steam vapor or whatever they've got in there.
Waitomo Ceiling. New Zealand's North Island contains a cave system where the ceiling performs something the night sky above ground has always done better until Waitomo. Thousands of glowworms cover the limestone passages overhead, producing a spread of cold blue light that replicates open space with unsettling accuracy. Visitors drift beneath it in silence, and the resemblance holds. The light isn't decorative. Each glowworm hangs sticky threads below itself and uses its glow to pull prey upward into it, a beauty functioning entirely as a trap. Explored first in the late 1800s, the caves have drawn people steadily since. What looks like drifting through a quiet universe is something considerably less peaceful for anything flying through it. Devil's Sea. Japan's coastal waters carry a reputation that centuries of maritime history haven't softened. The stretch near Miyake Island, called the Devil's Sea, and sometimes the Pacific's answer to the Bermuda Triangle, has absorbed ships and aircraft across recorded time without returning explanations alongside the wreckage. In the 1950s, Japan dispatched a research vessel carrying over 30 crew members specifically to study the disappearances. The ship vanished with everyone aboard, adding itself to the list it had been sent to investigate. No single theory has since accounted for the full pattern of losses. The sea remains deliberately avoided, and the gap between what entered it and what came back has never been adequately closed. Devil's Eye. Qinghai's remote highlands contain a spring so geometrically perfect and vividly colored that aerial photographs make it look worth the journey. Locals named it the Devil's Eye not for beauty, but for what it does to everything around it. Sulfur saturates the water at concentrations high enough to poison the surrounding air, leaving the land completely bare. No vegetation survives nearby. Animals instinctively avoid the perimeter. Tourists approaching too closely risk breathing air that genuinely cannot sustain them. Scientists have cataloged the chemistry behind its colors and its hostility, but the name endures because no scientific label fully captures how deeply wrong the place feels standing beside it. Catatumbo lightning. Venezuela's Lake Maracaibo shoreline hosts a storm that simply refuses to leave. Locals call it Catatumbo lightning, a nightly electrical event that has persisted over the same coordinates for centuries without meaningful interruption. Massive flashes illuminate the sky for hours continuously, sometimes stretching across months without pause.
Fenómeno meteorológico excepcional de nuestro planeta, porque es el único fenómeno meteorológico en el mundo que se ha convertido en la historia.
Scientists have studied the atmospheric conditions feeding it, proposing various mechanisms involving moisture, wind, and geography. None of those theories fully accounts for why this singular location remains permanently charged while everything surrounding it stays ordinary. The numbers alone are staggering: 1.2 million strikes annually, 280 recorded within a single hour. The storm doesn't wander, it stays.
El 28 de enero del año 2014, Record Guinness oficialmente reconoce la región del relámpago Catatumbo como el sitio de
Fontaine de Vaucluse. In Torsier, France, a natural spring rises from a stone amphitheater sitting directly among ordinary houses and roads. Locals call it the Font de Vaucluse, and its surface appearance gives almost nothing away. Beneath the water, darkness descends to depths nobody has accurately confirmed.
Cette source, puisque les plongeurs qui sont restés au fond, voilà les éléments d'information.
Explorers have sent equipment down and lost it. Divers have entered and not returned. Ropes have simply run out before finding the bottom. Legends attached to the spring speak of hidden treasures somewhere in the deep, and of currents that pull anything venturing too close away from the surface permanently. Whatever the spring's actual depth is, it has consumed enough attempts at measurement to suggest it prefers remaining unknown.
Donc il y a encore beaucoup de questions, beaucoup d'interrogations. Donc le mystère est entier et on ne sait pas encore l'explication.
Cloud Mountain. The plane passenger crossing the Swiss Alps noticed something that ordinary mountains don't. One particular peak was doing. Clouds weren't passing over it, they were emerging from it, pouring steadily off the summit in a continuous stream, as though something beneath the surface was manufacturing them deliberately. Normal orographic weather doesn't behave with that consistency over a single fixed point. The observation isn't new. It has been happening over the same peak long enough that a theory has begun gaining serious traction, that those clouds aren't atmospheric at all, and that whatever the mountain has been concealing beneath, it has been doing so with remarkable patience and without any outside help. Chocolate Hills. Bohol's landscape across the Philippines refuses to look real from any angle. Hundreds of near-identical rolling hills stretch across the terrain for miles, symmetrical, evenly spaced, and shaped with a uniformity that nature rarely produces at this scale. Each dry season, the grass covering them fades from green to deep brown, transforming the entire view into something resembling rows of giant chocolate drops, which is precisely where the name originates.
You might be asking, why are they green if it's called the Chocolate Hills? Well, during the dry season, they get brown.
Limestone pushed upward by ancient oceans is one theory. Volcanic formation is another. Neither has achieved consensus. Local tradition attributes the hills to giants grieving across the landscape. Scientists continue studying them. The hills range from 30 to 120 meters tall and remain, by any reasonable measure, unexplained.
Some of the hills are small, they have around 30 meters, and some of the hills are high as of 120 meters. And it's quite a touristy place, but definitely worth the hype.
Firefall Return. Every February, Yosemite offers something that requires almost perfect conditions to exist. Horsetail Fall descends nearly 3,000 feet down El Capitan's granite face for much of the year, without drawing unusual attention. Then, for a handful of days, the setting sun strikes the falling water at an angle precise enough to transform it entirely, turning the full cascade into a stream of glowing orange and gold that looks far more like molten rock than water. The waterfall must be flowing. The sky must stay clear. The sun must hit exactly right. When all three align, the mountain produces something that feels far too deliberate to be accidental. Mountain Door. Filming in Kazakhstan's mountains, a group of YouTubers directed their drone towards something in the rock face that their footage couldn't adequately explain. A large arched door carved cleanly into the mountain surface sat embedded in solid stone, with no path leading to it and no obvious indication of origin. When the footage spread, the response split sharply. Some identified it immediately as a portal to something dangerous. Others argued something ancient had been deliberately sealed behind it and had been waiting there, undisturbed, for whoever eventually came with enough resolve to actually enter. Neither side produced evidence. The door remained where it was, carved into rock, offering nothing further. Desert Structure. Somewhere inside the Iranian desert, a tourist encountered something the landscape had no business containing. A giant black structure rising from open sand, no settlement nearby, no road explaining its delivery, nothing for miles suggesting human presence. Its sheer scale raised immediate questions about how it arrived somewhere so completely isolated. Closer inspection only deepened the problem. The material composing it matched nothing cataloged, not metal, not stone, not any substance with a known terrestrial origin. That single detail quietly eliminates most comfortable explanations. What remains afterward is a shorter, far less reassuring list of possibilities.
This is a building under the sand.
Massive Hand. In Mexico, a desert explorer found a hole substantial enough to investigate and approached it without particular concern. What was inside was removed immediately. At the bottom, chained in place, sat an enormous hand too large to belong to anything within any category he had prepared for. His first assumption was an ancient structure, a buried statue, something civilizations leave behind. Then, one finger moved. That single motion collapsed every comfortable interpretation simultaneously. Whatever was chained beneath the Mexican desert floor was not a relic. It was alive, restrained, and present. He left without learning what it was or what it needed, and that decision appears, under the circumstances, entirely reasonable. Roraima Summit. Rising from the jungle along the borders of Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil, Mount Roraima climbs 1,000 meters on walls, so sheer they appear deliberate rather than geological. Its summit is completely flat, a vast stone table suspended above the tree line, cut off from everything below. Scientists date the mountain at nearly 2 billion years old, making it among the most ancient formations on Earth. That isolation across deep time produced something unique plant and animal species existing nowhere else on the planet, evolving entirely separated from the world beneath the cliffs. Arthur Conan Doyle used it as the foundation for the Lost World. Standing at its base, the choice of inspiration requires no explanation. Golden Door. High over Utah's Red Canyon walls, a drone operator testing his equipment's outer range caught something in the footage he wasn't prepared to process. Carved cleanly into sheer rock at an elevation no person reaches casually was a glowing golden door. Precise, deliberate, its craftsmanship pointing toward a civilization operating well beyond what recorded history has formally acknowledged. No scaffolding. No natural path. Getting there required either extraordinary effort or methods nobody is currently explaining. What makes this discovery genuinely difficult to set aside isn't the door's construction or its impossible position. It's the quieter question whether something placed it there and never actually left. Well of Hell. Yemen's Al Mara Desert contains a hole nearly 100 feet wide that drops straight into darkness with no visible bottom. Locals have avoided it for centuries, naming it the Well of Hell and describing it as a prison for evil spirits and jinn. Stories of strange smells, sudden winds, and unexplained shadows kept everyone at the perimeter until 2021, when a team of Omani cavers finally descended. What they found wasn't supernatural in any conventional sense. Snakes, animal remains, and rare cave pearls built up slowly over centuries. The physical contents got cataloged. The atmosphere that kept an entire region away from its edge for generations didn't entirely dissolve with the findings. Antarctica Mystery. A team working in Antarctica drilled through the frozen surface and sent a camera down to record whatever existed underneath. The footage that returned didn't show darkness or water. It showed an inverted landscape land formations and what appeared to be a complete environment existing upside down beneath the ice, silent and undisturbed. The implications of that image extend in directions that make prolonged consideration uncomfortable. Whatever is sitting directly below Antarctica has apparently been there long enough to develop its own geography. The ice above it sealed it off, the cold preserved it, and until that camera descended, nothing above the surface had any reason to suspect something that was complete was waiting underneath. Frozen pillars. Minnesota's night sky fractured in 2019, and the people standing beneath it went completely still. Massive columns of glowing light climbed vertically from the ground toward the heavens, arranged like spotlights operated by something invisible. The phenomenon has a name: light pillars.
So these are light pillars. Some of the best I've seen in years.
Microscopic flat ice crystals were drifting unseen through the cold air, and when ground-level light struck their surfaces at the precise angle, the reflections scaled upward into towering luminous shafts. Most nights, those same crystals passed through unnoticed, but conditions aligned just right that evening, and the footage captured something that looks less like weather and more like a message. Sahara's Eye. Stretching across the Saharan desert in a formation too symmetrical to dismiss, the Richat structure, known widely as the Eye of the Sahara, spans over 30 miles and remains clearly visible from orbit. Scientists have debated its origin for decades without reaching a firm consensus. Some researchers reject natural formation theories entirely, proposing instead that it's a long-abandoned site rather than a geological accident. The speculation doesn't stop there. Certain scholars have placed Atlantis here, pointing to its scale, its symmetry, and its complete isolation from anything geologically comparable on Earth. Viewed from above, it stares upward like something that was never meant to be found this way. Smoking tree. While walking through a snow-covered forest, this man found a tree producing smoke from cracks along its trunk. No heat smell carried through the freezing air. Just thin, steady streams rising silently into the cold. Fire without evidence of burning doesn't follow any straightforward explanation. Some viewers propose the smoke wasn't combustion at all, that something beneath the forest floor, a cave system, or buried structure, was venting upward directly through the tree's root system and out through its trunk. That theory hasn't been confirmed, neither has anything else. The tree kept producing smoke, the forest offered no further information, and no clear answer has emerged since. Sailing stones. Death Valley's racetrack playa hosts rocks that move without witnesses. Some weigh hundreds of pounds. All of them leave long trails across the flat desert surface as though guided by something invisible, operating only in the absence of observation. For decades, nobody caught them in motion.
And it's just one of these sort of geological mysteries that, like, everybody knows about, but we don't know about it.
Only the tracks confirmed it was happening at all. The time-lapse footage finally captured the mechanism. Overnight, thin ice sheets form around the stones. Morning sun cracks and loosens the ice, and gentle wind provides just enough force to push the rocks slowly forward, dragging their trails behind them across the lakebed. The explanation arrived eventually. It was stranger than most of the alternatives people had proposed.
Big ice sheets drive the rocks in front of them and just plow them along the bottom of this shallow pond.
Waterfall door. An Italian grotto concealed something behind its falling water that the current had apparently been covering for an indeterminate length of time. A narrow door-shaped opening sat cut directly into the rock face, perfectly framed. Edges clean. Darkness inside revealing nothing about depth or destination. The man who found it got close enough to confirm it extended further back than any natural cave formation would produce, then stopped. He didn't go through, and that restraint is difficult to argue with. Something about a passage cut into ancient rock behind a waterfall. Darkness deeper than the opening suggests it should be, and no record of who made it that combination doesn't invite entry. It discourages it. Mysterious Island. Between Antarctica and South Africa, far past any reasonable shipping corridor, sits Bouvet Island glaciated, surrounded by violent seas, and widely considered the most isolated piece of land on Earth. A French explorer first recorded it in 1739. Very few people have stood on it since. In 1964, a British expedition found an abandoned lifeboat on its shore. No crew, no records, no distress signals filed anywhere, no missing vessel reported in the surrounding waters. The seas enclosing Bouvet don't allow casual passage. Reaching it requires deliberate, difficult navigation under harsh conditions. Someone brought that lifeboat to the most unreachable coastline on the planet, left it there, and disappeared without producing a single traceable explanation. Devil's Kettle. Minnesota's Judge C.R. Magny State Park holds a waterfall with a problem nobody has cleanly solved. At Devil's Kettle, half the Brule River drops into a void and stops existing, no downstream reappearance, no traceable path. People threw objects in and waited. Nothing surfaced.
We'll see if anybody calls me from China.
Hydrologists introduced dye, fully expecting it to emerge somewhere measurable.
Big hole. Black hole.
There's still no real confirmation as to where the water goes once it goes in.
For years, results came back inconclusive. Eventually, studies suggested the water quietly rejoined the river a few hundred feet downstream, a conclusion reached partly because nobody had thought to measure the water volume until surprisingly late in the investigation. That answer satisfies some people. Others watch the river and remain quietly unconvinced that it shared everything.
The first thing that you do is you measure the water. And it turns out nobody had ever done that.
Stone message. Moving through the Mexican forest, a hiker stumbled onto something the landscape had no natural explanation for. Carved into rock beside a waterfall were enormous snake figures and giant human forms, detailed, large-scale, and executed with a precision that no hand tool from any period we formally recognize could have produced at that size. The craftsmanship wasn't incidental. The scale and deliberateness of it pointed toward a civilization working with intent, leaving something permanent for whoever eventually passed through after them. Whatever that message contains, it was carved carefully enough to survive. Understanding what it actually says is the part that hasn't happened yet. Crooked Forest. Poland contains a grove of roughly 400 pine trees that collectively abandoned the most basic rule of their species. Planted in the 1930s, every tree bends sharply at its base before curving back upward not randomly, but uniformly.
It's definitely like something I haven't seen before, and if it wasn't for things like that, it'd be a very eerie.
With most leaning north at a consistent 90-degree angle. The surrounding forest grows straight. Only these trees behave otherwise. Heavy snow and powerful winds during early growth have been proposed as causes, and so has deliberate human shaping for shipbuilding or furniture. Neither explanation has ever been proven. Decades of study have produced theories, but no confirmed answer, leaving behind a grove that grows in perfect agreement with itself and offers nothing further.
So in case you can't tell, there's not actually that much to do here. It's not a big space, so you can see pretty much everything just in the shot here.
Jar's Mystery. Laos contains a field that archaeology hasn't fully accounted for. Thousands of massive stone jars are distributed across hundreds of square miles, some exceeding 10 feet in height, some weighing over 30 tons, all carved from solid rock and placed without any written record explaining why.
Humongous megalithic jar, maybe over 100 tons, so it's a fairly significant rock lying there. It was really beautiful. I consider those jars a work of art.
Theories exist. Ancient burial markers, storage vessels from over 2,000 years ago. None has achieved consensus. Local legend attributes them to giants brewing rice wine on a scale matching the containers. In 2019, the site received World Heritage status, which formalized its importance without resolving its central question. Who placed thousands of stone jars across an open landscape, and what exactly they were for, remains genuinely unsettled.
There's a mystery today as to why the jars were constructed and how they were used.
Hidden bunker.
Oh my goodness. That's an entrance down below. I really don't believe it. I don't believe my eyes.
A Hungarian forest concealed something beneath its floor that nobody above ground had disturbed for decades. An explorer found a concrete hatch, pulled it open, and descended into a fully intact World War II bunker, military, electrical panels, operational, a communications room undisturbed, tactical maps still fixed to the walls, with coded operation names written across them. No collapse, no flooding, no sign of deliberate abandonment. Every room held its contents exactly as left. The preserved condition is what makes it feel less like a historical discovery and more like an interruption, as though the people who used it stepped outside briefly and simply never found their way back.
Oh, it's actually lit up. Am I seeing this? Is this real? Is this something that is happening right?
Sargasso stillness. The North Atlantic contains a sea with no coastline. The Sargasso Sea sits entirely enclosed by surrounding ocean currents, which hold it in place and keep its interior unusually calm against the movement pressing in from every direction. Across its surface drift thick mats of golden brown sargassum seaweed, dense enough to tangle propellers and slow vessels attempting to cross. Sailors historically avoided it, circulating stories of ghost ships and crews that disappeared without a traceable cause. Scientists continue debating why this particular stretch maintains such consistent isolation from normal oceanic behavior. The currents contain it, the seaweed covers it, and it operates by rules the surrounding Atlantic doesn't follow. Mojave Cube. A Mojave desert explorer found something the landscape had no explanation for. A perfectly cube-shaped stone sat in open terrain, glowing a deep green that no natural mineral found anywhere in the United States actually produces. Its geometry alone was wrong. Nature doesn't cut right angles into freestanding rock. Its color compounded that. Locals in the surrounding area were certain it hadn't been there before, placing its arrival somewhere between one day and the next, with nobody witnessing it come. That detail is what settled heaviest. Rocks don't appear overnight in the open desert. Whatever this object is, something brought it there deliberately, and whatever that reason was, it hasn't been explained. Rocky Door.
Put this in, I guess, but tell me they don't look like a door.
Hawaii's rocky cliff faces don't typically contain doors. This one did. An explorer moving through the mountain found an opening cut cleanly into solid red rock edges, precise enough, angles deliberate enough, that every natural explanation collapsed in contact with the actual image. Erosion doesn't produce frames, water doesn't cut rectangles, no construction record exists for that section of the mountain, and none of the surrounding terrain suggests anyone built anything nearby. 2 questions follow the discovery, and neither has received an answer since. Who cut this opening into Hawaiian rock, and whatever has been sitting on the other side of it? How long has it been there waiting for someone to finally ask?
Someone put this in, I guess, but tell me they don't look like a door.
Area 51 footage. Footage claiming to originate from inside Area 51 appeared online and split every audience that watched it. The recording showed long underground tunnels extending beyond the camera's range, sealed doors spaced along their length, and what appeared to be experimental rooms constructed well beneath the Nevada desert floor. No verified source accompanied the release. Nobody confirmed how it left the facility or who carried it out. The debate between people identifying it immediately as fabricated and those treating it as the first genuine internal documentation hasn't produced a resolution. Both sides remain positioned where they started, and the footage continues circulating without acquiring any official acknowledgement in either direction. Massive meteorite. Namibia's countryside holds the largest meteorite ever recovered. 60 tons of iron and nickel sitting flat on open ground, weathered by time, entirely uncrated. The Hoba meteorite's extraterrestrial composition was confirmed early. What hasn't been confirmed is how something this massive arrived without carving the landscape around it. Standard impact physics produces craters. Objects this heavy bury themselves. Hoba did neither. It rests on the surface